All right, we are live. Hi, everybody. My name's Candce Daniolo.
Hello.
I'm a pet business consultant and a Pets Plus columnist writer. And I've got some really cool people with me. I've got Jim Ackerman and Ruth MELLERGAARD. You can see them here on camera. And say hello, everybody.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
We have our viewers are just jumping on now, and they're chatting in. Yeah, they're chatting in the thread. So it looks like we've got some people from southern Delaware, Northwest Arkansas, Fort Lauderdale, all kinds of people joining in from all over the country. And as Jim and I were talking earlier, we were laughing because we are big baseball fans. I'm a Cubs fan. He's a Yankees fan. And tonight is one of the championship games.
I'm a Yankees fan.
Ah, you are too.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm outnumbered.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. So for our viewers, maybe you should say if you care about baseball or not tonight. I'm going to assume that you don't since you're joining us because you're probably watching the game. But
and the sacrifices we make for you, Candce.
I know. I feel very honored and happy that you're joining me tonight, along with the Pets Plus crew. And the whole point of what I'm doing here with Pets Plus is that we want to go beyond the pages of the magazine. For those of you that don't know me, like I said, my name's Candce Daniolo with Pet Boss Nation. And I started a coaching and consulting community for pet industry professionals. I focus on brick and mortar stores. And I came across the Pets Plus magazine when it first came out, and I was so impressed that I started writing a regular column for them. And after doing that and hearing all the amazing feedback from readers, I knew that we had to go beyond the pages, and that's what we do here. So welcome to Jim and Ruth and everyone watching. We are going beyond the pages of the magazine, the fabulous magazine, to dig deeper into these brilliant minds of the contributors that are in here, and to also give our readers, an opportunity to ask questions. So if you, as you can see, people have already been writing in the chat. So as I'm interviewing Jim and Ruth, I want you guys, if you have questions at all, you just post them in the chat feed. And then our moderator, Christina, whose team Pet Boss Nation is going to be pulling those questions aside for us to recap and revisit at the end. Okay? All right. So without further ado, I need to give Jim and Ruth their formal introductions. Okay? They have both contributed to an earlier article this year called If I Owned a Pet Business. So Jim and Ruth are not in the pet space, but they did write awesome articles that, if they owned a pet store, what would they do? So Ruth, I'm going to go to you first. Ruth is the principal at Grid 3 International. Now, Grid stands for Graphics, Retail, and Interior Design. So as a principal for Grid 3, Ruth has been practicing retail interior design for 30 years. That's impressive, Ruth. She is skilled as an interior designer, environmental awareness. You focus on environmental awareness, and you're a lighting expert and a color and materials originator. I love that. I have no idea what that is, but I'd love to know. And their company has customers all over the Americas. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, Candce. This is fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So now this is Ruth's first.
Sorry about the time lapse.
No problem. There's a little bit of a delay with her. That's okay. That's okay. Jim and I are old pros at this now at this point. But everyone, this is Ruth's first webinar, so let's go easy on her, okay? All right. So now let me introduce our.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's introduce Jim here. So Jim Ackerman is a nationally renowned marketing speaker and marketing coach. He is the author of several books on marketing and a regular contributor to several magazines, including Pets Plus. His remarkable principle-centered marketing coaching program has helped hundreds of small businesses get more customers who will pay you more often, the fastest and easiest, most cost-effective ways possible. His direct response approach to marketing is based on tested and tracked, profit-proven, cash-generating, money-making principles, strategies, and tactics. Oh my gosh. I mean, that, Jim, is awesome. I know that all of our viewers are in sales in some way, right? So sales really comes down to sales or everything, right? Welcome, Jim.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And, you know, it's an honor to write for the magazine. I was also honored to be asked to judge the Cool Stores competition. And that really, really gave me some great insights into the industry as well. And I have been a marketing vagabond over the last, more years than you've been alive, I suspect, and have traveled among all kinds of different industries, retail, wholesale, manufacturing, service companies, professionals, and have gotten to see a lot of different ways that people market their enterprises. And one of the most amazing thing is there's very little crossover from industry to industry, yet there's so much one industry can learn from another. So I thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, definitely. There is a lot that we can all learn from each other. And that's kind of why we have you here. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to propose some questions, and I'd love to get both of your perspectives from your industries. Like you just said, there's not a lot of crossover. So it's great. While I know there are people in the pet space who do marketing, it's great to hear somebody else's perspective outside of the pet industry. And then for Ruth, I mean, you are based on your article. I mean, you're all about how it looks and feels and the experience that customer is going to have visually and kind of probably heightening all of their senses. And so it's great to have someone who also has been in a lot of different industries as well as other countries too. So that's really cool. All right. So what I'll do is I'll ask you each a question, and I'll start with Jim first, and then we'll go to Ruth. And if any of you have questions along the way, just type them in the chat thread, okay? So to start, Jim, what do you think having a vision means? I mean, you talked about this a little bit in your article, but what does having a vision mean, and why is it important?
Well, look, it's not, the world isn't the way it used to be, right? I mean, in the old days, there was one of each kind of business in town. A lot of towns didn't even have a pet store, right? Or any kind of pet business, let alone a retail store. Now it's very competitive. People can go online and buy stuff. There's these big chain stores all over the place. And so it becomes vital for any retailer to differentiate themselves from the competition. And that begins with a vision. Now, this isn't a retail example, but it's probably the most poignant example that everybody will be aware of, and that's Steve Jobs and Apple. Right? Here was a man who had a vision that was radically different from anything that was going on in that world, in the high-tech world. You know, at that time that he came out with Macintosh in the first place, you had to know all kinds of commands. Everything was DOS. The computers were big and huge, and the idea of personal computing didn't even exist. But the man had a vision. And when he executed that vision, as the old saying goes, the world beat a path to his door.
So, Ruth, what do you think that vision is, and why is it important?
Well, it's interesting because I obviously think of her as visual, but you need a story. Every retailer we work with needs to have a story. Can you hear me all right, Candce?
We can hear you. There's a little bit, it's interesting. Sometimes there's a little bit of an echo, but we can hear you.
I'm sorry about that. Anyway, that's what we emphasize with our customers. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to communicate? How can we take visual images, ideas, materials, lighting, all kinds of things to portray that vision, that brand story? And every store is a brand as far as I'm concerned, even if you have other brands within them. And you want to craft your own brand visually, both on the outside and the inside. And as Jim says, because so much is changing these days, you can't just do it the old way. And you need to think of innovative things to be able to do. We were working on a store in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, and he was all about the outdoor life and that kind of thing. So we had a huge custom mural of Lake Michigan in Sunset.
Nice.
We used some barnwood in planks on part of the wall, you know, things that evoked that for the customers. And also because they're in a tourist town, you know, I think that tie-in is really very important. So that's what vision is to me.
Right. You know, I think I agree with you there. I mean, really, in vision and vision is both of those. You know, really, it's one, seeing the big picture. Where are you going? What do you want to accomplish? So I think, you know, because I'm from the pet industry, the pet perspective is really like, I love the fact of like educating pet parents and changing the lives of pets so they can live healthier, longer lives, because there's a benefit when the dog is happy, because it has a ripple effect through the entire life of the human as well, right? We all know that dogs make our lives better. So having that vision of your own store of like, how are you bigger than just selling dog food or poop bags, right?
Well, and you know, you've got there are several industries that are kind of similar to this in what might be surprising ways. One of the ways that the pet industry appears to me to be similar to other industries I've worked with is the passion with which the owners of the businesses come to the table. Mm-hmm. If you are I'll give you another example of an industry I've done quite a bit of work with, is the natural health and supplement business. And these people come to the table with the same kind of passion that pet business owners come to. Same thing is true in the jewelry business many times. Okay, so this passion comes, and yet you've got these big chain stores and you've got the internet. And two things that I've noticed with small businesses that are based on emotion and passion is that, number one, sometimes the owners feel guilty about making a profit.
Yes.
That happen in this industry?
A little bit.
And then the second thing that happens is they try to compete on the same playing field as the chains and the internet and that kind of thing. And you can't do it. It's impossible. So you have to bring, as you guys pointed out, you have to bring expertise. You have to bring something to the table. The passion is one thing, but you've got to be able to translate that into a tangible benefit to the buyer in order to get enough of those buyers to say, I'm not going to buy it online. I'm not going to buy it at, PetSmart. I'm going to come to the small local retailer and get it.
Yeah. And so from your perspectives, how do entrepreneurs and small businesses differentiate themselves?
Who do you want to go first on that?
Let's go with you, Jim.
Okay. So
sure.
I teach a principle that I call the unique purchase appeal, right? It's one sentence to one paragraph that describes how your business is different from the competition in a way that appeals to your target customer. And if you don't have that, and most businesses either don't have one at all, or they've never clearly articulated what it is that sets them apart from the rest of the crowd. And if you don't have one, or you haven't articulated it, you're going to be seen as an also-ran, just like everybody else. And when that happens, the consumer says, I can't tell the difference between this guy and this guy, so I guess I'm going to make my decision based on price. Now, the ultimate challenge, however, is that it's very difficult to sell the concept of we have superior customer service simply because everybody's going to claim that. All right. So you have to figure out a way, if you're going to sit there and say, we've got superior customer service, you've got to figure out a way to say that in a way that's going to be believable to the consumer at a level that the consumer says, that's enough of a difference for me to come there instead of going to the other place. And that is a challenge. Now, I've got a system that I can share with you on how to do that, but it begins with coming up with that one sentence to one paragraph that describes how your business is different from the competition in a way that appeals to your target customers. For example, if you were to say to me, what do you do? Well, there's a lot of people out there who would say, I help people with their marketing. I'm an advertising guy. I'm a marketing coach even, or a business coach. Well, that's kind of a common way to say things. But I say, I help you get more customers who will pay you more money more often, the fastest, easiest, most cost-effective ways possible. Now, that's articulated the only 3 ways to grow a business: get more customers, increase the average transaction, get existing customers to come back more often, articulated in a way that wraps it all up in that one sentence, and people go, I want all those things. Mm-hmm. And so they express interest.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. So Ruth, how would you, and you're frozen here on your video. So I was thinking I could turn your video off, but so let me try that. If it doesn't change when you start talking. But Ruth, how would retailers differentiate themselves from your perspective?
Well, I think if they come up with that one sentence that Jim has suggested they think of, then what we have to do is make that one sentence into a 3-dimensional reality. Their store has to reflect that in some way, whatever that means. Things that store designers do, seeing materials, it keeps clicking off this video.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, because it kept freezing on you.
The way the merchandise is presented. Oh, sorry. Yes. Well, that's okay. Turn it off and can you hear my voice?
That's I can. That's what I do. So we're all good. So
can you hear my voice?
Yep.
Okay. And I think the other thing, you know, the whole experience of, if you want people in the 3-dimensional space, is really important. You need customer amenities these days. You need a reason for people to come in, and even to stop on the street or drive past and say, oh, okay. Because predominantly what we're talking about is independent retailers. They may have half a dozen stores, but they're not large, the PetSmarts of this world. They're independents throughout the country. And that means bricks and mortar as well as web, hopefully partly selling on the web, but you need like a continuous experience. And the bricks and mortar part is very important.
Very important.
You know,
so what is,
you know, Candce, I think Ruth has a great point there. And as having judged the Cool Stores competition, I had a chance to look at a variety of presentations, physical presentations. And I found it fascinating the way many retailers really did try to reflect an experience in their decor. Now, not all of them, but most of them tried to do something a little bit different. And if you consider the average pet business, whether it's a retail store or a service, typically, obviously there's some that people run things out of their home, but if you have a retail environment at all, you're typically probably in some strip shopping center, very few freestanding stores, and you have to do something really. You make a concerted effort to have the exterior, and once people walk through the door, the interior look distinctive enough that people don't walk through the door and just think ho hum.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So what are some mistakes, Ruth, that you've seen that when people have either tried too hard or wrong? Like, what's the bad stuff?
Well, one of the biggest problems I think, is that they don't know how to edit. First of all, they think, I want all customers. You can't have all customers. It's not possible. You need to focus on where financially are you selling, what kinds of customers you want, and that kind of thing. And you need to do a few things very well. And I have seen so many stores of all kinds where they don't edit the product at all. It's just all jammed in a showcase or stuck on a gondola, no communication. Well, this is not my part of my business, but there's no staff training. They don't, yes, they speak to you, but they don't necessarily engage you. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I have 2 cats. I'm a proud pet parent. And so obviously I shop in an independent pet store. And the woman is very nice, the young woman who works in there. But when we were trying to help our older cat lose weight, she didn't communicate that to us. So we had to go to the gondola where all the cat food was and read all the labels. Well, there should have been an easier way. I mean, we go there because it's convenient. And I'm not a big fan of, and maybe because of my business, I'm not a big fan of buying everything on the internet. But I really think the biggest mistake they make is they don't edit, or they cram too many ideas into one, and it's not cohesive.
Yeah. So we touched on a really important point there, Ruth, that I think Jim can help us with too. And it's those sales conversations. You know, Jim, we didn't talking about this, but I've had that exact same experience going into a lot of pet stores where, and I wrote an article about this in one of the magazines too, is just that conversation and converting customers and how to make that smooth. And it does come down to training your employees, but gosh, so much, you know, there are so many missed opportunities because sales associates are just asking, you know, what'd you come in for today? Or how can I help you? Well, if you need me, I'm over here. So Jim, what would be some of your like in-person sales tactics that you feel like can help brick and mortar retailers or even sales reps who maybe are working a trade show? Like what's that conversation, the human element of it?
Well, look, I think Ruth made a really important point where she says that most retailers fail to edit. They fail to edit their product line, but they also fail to edit their customer base. They fail to determine, hey, this is the type of person I'm after. And if I don't get everybody, I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. And one of the big mistakes that I think people make is in their advertising, they try to be all things to all people, and they try not to offend anybody. Now, you shouldn't be out to try to offend anybody either, but you shouldn't be so milquetoast in your advertising that nobody gets any sense of what your identity is, right? So if you're advertising right, it should attract the right kind of people to walk through your door in the first place. And that's the job of advertising. Now, to your question specifically, and we can come back to the advertising a little bit later, but when people walk through the door, you're exactly right. Typical thing is, hi, how you doing? Can I help you? People aren't going to respond to that for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is they're not sure what you can do to help them, and they don't know if they want to be helped.
Exactly.
Okay, so there should be a script, and the script should be taught to all associates for when they walk through the door. All right. Now, I don't know. You know, everybody can have their own script, but let me pose one that would be different than the standard. Can I help you? Or you know, what kind of a pet do you have, or whatever it happens to be. How about if they walked in the door and the first words out of your mouth were, hi, welcome to Pets. Let's use Pets Plus, right?
Yeah, Pets Plus Boutique.
Yep. I see Ralph's on here. He'll be happy about that. Yeah. Welcome to Pets Plus Boutique. Have you ever been in our store before? Okay. Immediately, they don't expect that. Right? They expect you to say, can I help you? Right. Okay. When you say, have you ever been in our store before? There are only 3 possibles. Okay. Number 1, they haven't been. Number 2, they have been, but you don't know them. And number 3, they have been and you do know them. Now, if they have been and you do know them, you're not going to ask that question. You might ask, how long has it been since you've been back to our store? All right. In any one of those scenarios, it puts you them in a position of having to answer a question that's an easy question to answer, but one they're not prepared for. And therefore it becomes an icebreaker. Well, no, I've never really been in your store. Well, before we address your specific needs today, can I share with you what makes Pets Plus Boutique different from any other pet store in the area?
Yeah, I love that.
Say to that.
No, I love it. I love what you've just said. Yeah.
That's
I mean,
what I want to know.
It's so smart because it identifies one for you if they are new or if they're tourists or live in the neighborhood. I mean, you can that is an open-ended question, right? That can lead conversation to a lot of places, and it provides you an opportunity in your store. Then exactly your vision.
Right, exactly. That's exactly the point. And even if it's somebody you know and you say, how long has it been since you've been to our store? And they say, well, probably been 60 days. Have we ever told you what makes us different from any other pet store in the area? And it it opens up the door to clearly, and then the rest of the script has got to be that one sentence to one paragraph that describes how you're different from the competition in a way that appeals to your target customers. And as Ruth will surely say, the whole atmosphere of the physical presence of the store should reflect that, so that there's congruence in the message you verbally give and the message that they see.
Right. No, that's great. Thank you. I'm so glad that we talked about that. All right, this is everyone that's watching.
One other thing that. Oh.
Go ahead, Ruth.
What? Oh, well, all I was going to say is today I was in a travel store because I'm doing research for a retailer I'm working for. And it was quite interesting because the staff greeted me. They were very pleasant. But then they left me on their own. But the way the product was organized, I could tell the whole story. It was truly amazing the way they used, not a lot of signage because people don't read a lot, but there were some sort of little lines, about, and not about here is suitcases or something like this, but these are all these passport holders and cases. That's it. Or here's personal travel things. So that things that you never even realized you could purchase, there they were. It was truly amazing how they communicated to the store is very beautiful. But I thought the communication, and in addition to what the staff said, Jim, because I agree with you there, it was fascinating. Yeah, and not so hard to implement.
Great, yeah. So what are the innovations and trends that you're both seeing within your own industries, and how do you think that those can translate to a pet retailer or pet professional? Ruth, let's go ahead and start with you.
Okay. Design in general and for stores is becoming a lot more residential. And what does that mean?
Yeah,
it means if you run a vet practice, if you think of what they're doing now in hospitals, they're using more color, they're using more residential material, although in commercial qualities. The lighting is softer. There's comfortable seating if there's room, depends whether the store is big enough, but that whole trend to a sort of residential look, and it doesn't necessarily mean lots of moldings. It can be very contemporary, traditional, country, whatever you like, but it is more residential as opposed to institutional. What does it mean? One of the biggest things right now is lighting, because of LEDs. They are amazing. Sadly enough, I think they introduced them, the people who manufactured them, and to get the amount of light output, they used very poor color quality, very cool. So people now are being encouraged to change their bulbs out and it's one of the things I encourage my retailers to do, from the lamps they have now to LED. And then they screw them in and they say, oh dear, I look horrible. Everything looks horrible. It's because they don't understand, and no one communicates to them, the difference in the color temperature. That makes a huge, huge difference. It's a wonderful technology, this LED light, but you really do need a little bit, an hour of a designer or architect who knows about lighting, an hour of their time, and they can advise you, you know, what a difference it makes.
Yeah, and I remember even in my own boutique, I'm a former pet retailer, and in my own store too, is like the lighting. If the bulbs either went out, that was my biggest pet peeve. But also, when you re-merchandise your store, part of that is looking at the direction of your lights. You have to change it, you know, because you move things around. So.
You do. Well, at least you thought about it. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry, Jim.
I've got those cool lights overhead. The truth of the matter is I am only 30 years old and have a full head of hair. So you're exactly right. The lighting is absolutely terrible.
Horrible there, Jim. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It is cool. It's cool. I can see by looking at it.
Yeah, it is. And yours is warm. I can see that too.
Yes, exactly. It's more flattering.
So now, Jim, for you, like, what are some innovations in the marketing world that a pet retailer could put in place?
Well, I'm tempted to say what everybody says, which is digital marketing. I'm not going to say that. Not because it's a trend. I'm not going to say it because it's not a trend. I'm going to say it because it's not as effective as a lot of people would have you believe. And it seems like almost every industry these days is so focused on digital marketing that they have forgotten or no longer believe in the value of traditional marketing kinds of techniques. And so we get all wrapped up in Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest. Maybe we do some things with email, which I'll come back to in a minute. And, you know, we feel like we have to invest big money in our websites and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not telling you not to do those things. However, if there's been a drop off in the effectiveness of more traditional marketing, it is largely a function of self-fulfilling prophecy because people simply don't use it anymore. Now, I'm not going to tell you to go to the yellow pages, and I'm not going to tell you to go to the daily newspaper. However, I think it's a major mistake if small business owners particularly don't build their marketing foundation, their advertising foundation on the cornerstone of direct mail.
Yeah,
how's that going to be for ruining everybody's day?
Yeah, I was just talking about this with somebody too. That like you never get anything good except junk mail, and even now, a lot of people pay their bills online, so they're pretty much going paperless. So really, they don't even get a lot of mail unless it's junk.
But let me tell you what the research shows, and let me back off to the introduction. Right, I am a direct response marketer, so that puts me in the league of Eddie Bauer and Land's End, where everything is tested and tracked. Okay, it puts me in the league of Ron Popeil and Joe Sugarman. Joe Sugarman did the famous blue blocker sunglasses, and Ron Popeil had everything from the pocket fisherman to the stuff you spray on your head to make it look like you've got hair, which clearly doesn't work. I've tried it. In fact, I just sprayed it on minutes before we came on the air, so clearly. But my point of the matter is, all these things are absolutely tested and tracked for what works and what doesn't work. And over decades of time, there have been a whole lot of surprising things that have risen out of that kind of information. One of the things that you would be surprised to know probably is that longer works better than shorter. In other words, if I send out and this doesn't happen across the board, so you have to test and track results, but more often than not, if I send out a postcard versus a letter, the letter will outpull the postcard. If I send out a 2-page letter, it's likely to outpull a 1-page letter. Now, I know this is counterintuitive to what the KISS principle supposedly is, the KISS principle being keep it simple, stupid, right? But people mistranslate that into keep it short, stupid. And short and simple are not the same things. Sometimes in order to keep it simple, which I would equate to clear, you need more words rather than fewer words. You need more explanation rather than less explanation. And one thing that you said, Candce, while you and I were chatting a little bit before we went on the air live, was the importance of being a bit of a personality to your business. You know, that people like to do business with people they're familiar with. And if you can lose the ad speak in your direct mail, your radio, your online, all of that stuff, and try to be personable and personal in all of your advertising and marketing, you can see dramatic increases in the results you get. And when I say dramatic, let me give you some examples. If you think that the average response rate to a direct mail piece is somewhere between 0.5% to 1% to maybe as high as 2%, done correctly, I'm suggesting to you that you could get 4%, 8%, 12%, 16%, 32%. I've even seen 80+% response rates, and my personal best was over 100%.
What? Maybe we'll have to have a whole nother webinar about direct mail then.
Yeah. Hello.
But I will say, like, just the point of that, like, it can't, there's one of the comments that came through is that we looked at it and didn't follow through. And I know even for myself, I've done a little bit of direct mail, but the key is, and this is the thing I've heard too, is that, and so I'm curious, your perspective is, you have to at least send something 3 times almost, like it can't just be a one-off. What's your perspective?
Biggest myth in marketing.
Yeah.
You've been told that by all the media has told you that for decades of time. Well, somebody's got to see your ad at least 3 times before they'll respond. Or some people say, you got to see the ad 7 times before they respond. Yeah. I've seen it as many as 9 times before they respond. Yep. All of that's not true. None of it's true. It will work the first time if it's done right. If you get the right audience, with the right offer, at the right time, it will work the first time. And I can give you example after example of how I've actually watched that happen right before my eyes. Not only me doing it, but my clients doing it.
Right, right. And I love it. I love it. That's awesome. All right. Now, let's see here. I'm curious. What is the most impactful, low-cost thing that you can suggest people do right away to make a difference in their store, their pet business? Because now at Pet Boss Nation, my company, we really help with cash flow and profits and pricing products and inventory. And I will tell you that cash flow is one of the most challenging things in a pet business. And so people are always looking for the low-cost thing they can do. Mm-hmm. So, Ruth, why don't you tell us what it would be in a store? What's an impactful way with not a lot of money to really make a wow?
Okay. First of all, if I were you, I would try walking into your shop, starting at the front, look at the window and say, would I come in? You know, it is amazing how blasé we become about the spaces we inhabit, but we don't see things. And one can live with it, I suppose, in your office or your house, but it's a shame to live with it in your store. So look at the displays and think, I wonder if I could do something differently. Could I ask an art school graduate, or maybe there's an art school close to you, or there's so many ideas for visual merchandising, for creating interesting windows. That's an obvious thing. Paint. For heaven's sake, paint doesn't cost anything. Well, relatively speaking, just buy a decent brand. You can paint it yourself, or you can have a painting party. That's right. Excellent. Move your merchandise around. Don't always have it, here's this, there's that. So what happens? People come in, they just go straight to whatever.
That's so true. That's so true. I'm not sure if we lost you there, or if you were done, but that's such good points, Ruth. Thank you. And it looks like Ruth's jumping back on now. For Jim, what's your big takeaway, or not takeaway? What's your big recommendation for something low cost they can do for marketing?
How about if I give you 3?
Okay.
All right. First thing, if you really want additional revenue that will have no cost. By the way, I agree with Ruth 100%. If a headline is an ad for your ad, your front window is the ad or the headline for your store. So I think she's dead on with that. Right. When people come in, the first thing you should think about doing is installing a formal upsell and add-on selling system in your store. Okay. Most people don't have a good handle on the breadth of what you can do to help them. Most people come in they've got something in their mind that they want, but there are additional things that they could and should have. And so if you have a formal upselling system, and there's 6 elements to that I won't take time to go into today, but if you had a formal upselling system in place without adding one new body walking through the door, you could expect to add 10 to 30% to your revenue, and maybe even more to your profits, because once they've come in and got the main thing that you got them in for, everything that you add on is really at cost of goods sold. So that would be the first and foremost thing I would do to immediately increase revenues. The second thing I would do is have some kind of a private event for my existing customers. Reach out to my existing customers, invite them to some kind of private event. It could be after hours. It could be an open house. It's something that you can A, direct mail to them, B, email to them, C, telemarket to them, and D, possibly text to them, all at low cost. We're talking about maybe inviting 500 people. And
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we've done smaller things. I mean, on a smaller scale for smaller stores, you can have a very successful event with 30 of your top customers. Because and it depends on how you invite them. If you invite 500, you got 50 to show up, that would be a 10% response rate, and you'd be turning somersaults. But the point of the matter is that's a low cost thing that you can do. And if you look at the first 2 recommendations I suggested, one was more money, one was more often. So now the third piece would be, how do we get more bodies to walk through the door? And if I were you, I would put in place a formal referral rewards system, so that you are asking your clients to send you referrals and you're rewarding them systematically for doing so. Very low cost, far less expensive than any kind of media advertising. Yeah, I mean, I think that both of you have given such amazing points and tips there. Each of you gave a handful. And really, when I think to Jim's point earlier too about social media and digital marketing, is that we do all think that we need to be, not, I don't say we do all think, but many people think that they need to be on the internet and on Facebook, and they're upset that they can't drive there. Feel like no one likes their Facebook post. I mean, I am in a lot of Facebook groups. I even have one, and I see, and I run, that's how I communicate with some of our clients and some of the Pets Plus people. But I see these retailers that are on Facebook all day long, and I'm like, what are you doing? You need to be working. There's a million other things you could be doing, and it's just really interesting to me. But to your point, like there's so much that you can do that that is not going to cost a lot of money, and it will make huge impacts. It may not be an overnight thing, what you're saying, but the minute you start being consistent on all those topics you guys just said, that 3 months from now, that will make drastic impacts, because it's going back to the basics. Yeah, really great stuff. Okay, so we now are at a point where we want to take some questions. Okay, so I'm going to pop over and see if we have any. I think we do have a few. And so if you want to continue to put in questions into the chat, please feel free to. Otherwise, I've got plenty more for our guests here. So, all right, let me hop over and see what we got. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Tanya wants to know if she says she knows our client, so I guess that must mean that she's figured out who she knows who her client is. She wants to know any tips on figuring out what sets you apart from other boutiques. Now we've talked a lot about this a little bit. I mean, you know, Ruth, from Ruth's perspective, it's yeah, how you look, what it looks like.
Can I?
Go ahead, Ruth.
Well, what I was going to say is if she knows her ideal customer, then how can we, what does she think those ideal customers would relate to, or what does she want to communicate to them in her store? Because that's what she needs to think about if she knows her ideal customer. I mean, it depends where she is in the country, who the customers are, what level of product. There's so many questions. But you can craft an interior and a storefront. Never forget your storefront. I mean, if you paint the interior, then change the awning color or do something outside so people know, because we're all curious.
Yeah.
But I think she needs an image that reflects who her customer is.
Yeah, we had at my old retail store, Dogaholics, I did what's called a brick vinyl, and I took I did a rebranding, and I wrote our manifesto, right, like our mission statement. I wrote it out for our website and our marketing copy, but I went a step further, and I literally turned it into large print in brick vinyl and attached it to the whole exterior of one of the corners of the store, so that when people walked by, like they knew it was a great
perfect.
You know, differentiating yourself from the other boutiques in town. So Jim, what's your trick or tips?
I certainly couldn't tell anybody what their vision should be or how they should differentiate themselves, but I can give you a tip on how to determine what your customers think. In other words, if you don't want to dictate it and you'd like your customers to tell you, you could conduct a very brief survey of your best customers. It's important that you do your best customers because you want more of those kinds of folks. You don't want more of the bad customers. And let's face it, we all have some of them. Okay. So you go to those best customers, a minimum of 12, a maximum of 36 of them. So this doesn't have to take a great deal of time, but you're going to poll them and ask them 3 key questions. Number 1, why did you choose to do business with us in the first place? Number 2, why do you continue to do business with us? And number 3, what is it that you dislike about our competition or our industry? Okay. All right. So this will give you some key insights. Number 1, the first question, why did you choose to do business with us in the first place? Gives you some idea about what the outside perception of your business is to those kinds of folks you want to do more business with, which would be a good idea to know what they think, regardless of what you think, right? The second thing gives you an idea about the inside reality. What is the real value that we bring to the table? Now, the two may be the same. They may be different. It doesn't matter. You just got to gather the data, right, in the initial stages. And the third question, what do you dislike about our competition or the industry, will tell you where the holes are in the industry, in your business. And if you can plug those holes, you have a unique purchase appeal that will attract those kinds of customers. Now, you have to blend that with whatever vision you have, if you have one, and obviously that's part of the equation. If you don't have one, let your customers give you that vision through this survey. Now, how do you determine whether you do 12 or 24 or 36? It's as trends arise. If you talk to 12 people and they all tell you exactly the same thing, you've got your information. If you see things go in 2 or 3 different directions, you may still need to continue to ask, no more than 36 people, but you'll see trends arise, and they may stay trends throughout all your interviewing. And when that happens, you also have your information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So we've got 2 other questions that are about the 2 people asking about the referral reward program that we were talking about earlier. And one is just how any suggestions for it, which I know there are a lot of different platforms that are out there. That you can, a point of sale system can track things, sometimes reward points. There's other things like Belly, which is an iPad. And then there's another one that's some loyalty paw thing. So there's other companies you can integrate with. But I think the key question here is that one person was even thinking, like, what does that look like, and what's the best way to even really structure it?
Would you be surprised if I told you there's actually a system that has 7 parts to it?
I wouldn't be surprised because you are a man of many, many facts and strategies. So tell us.
Part 1 is you need to have some kind of an incentive for the referred person to come in and do business with you. Okay. That's usually some kind of gift certificate to your store. Okay. You have to know what your average transaction is, what the lifetime profit value of your customer is in order to know what would be motivating enough to get somebody to come in the store. But it has to be motivating, and therefore you cannot look at that initial transaction as needing to be profitable. You are trying to get somebody to become an ongoing client, not just a one-time customer.
Right.
So it has to be a compelling enough offer that it will get them to walk through the door. Okay, that's element number 1. Number 2, there has to be an incentive for your clients to refer their friends. So if I'm your client and I have my friend Paul, and Paul's got a dog, and I say, Paul, you really ought to go see Pets Plus Boutique. And by the way, they gave me this nice gift certificate to give to you to go in and see them. Then when Paul walks through the door, what's in it for me? Now, I don't necessarily do it because I'm concerned about what's in it for me, but when I know what's in it for me, I have a little bit extra oomph. And when I actually receive the reward, I'm now motivated to, this is cool. I want to go do this again.
Yeah.
Now, there's 2 kinds of rewards that you can have. You can have in-store credits. That's the easiest and the cheapest, but it may not be the most motivating. What if you gave me movie tickets?
That's fun. Yeah.
Well,
I like that.
well, now I can take my wife out this weekend. Doesn't cost me anything. I look like a hero to the wife. And by the way, you also included 3 additional gift certificates for me to hand out to 3 more of my friends. Why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
And better yet, if it's a woman who's your customer and you give her the movie tickets, now my wife comes to me and says, you may think you're watching the ball game this Friday, but you're not. You're going to the movies with me, right? I've got free tickets. How do I say no to that? Okay, so that's the reward piece of it. Now, you may or may not have to have some kind of incentive to your staff to execute the program, but you will need to have scripts for your staff to introduce the program to your customers. Okay, you're going to have support materials. That's the gift certificates, the reward certificates, a letter that goes out to your customer base, either all at once or over time, to introduce them to the program, and then a reward letter that goes out when they actually receive a reward because they referred somebody. So those are the support materials that are involved. Okay, there has to be training for your staff. So you teach them how to use the scripts, what to say it, how to present the program. And then there may need to be consequences if they don't do it. And then, of course, there has to be 2 tracking systems. One tracking system to just make sure the program's working. And more important than that, the tracking system that makes sure that if I send in a referral who actually does come in, I get my reward in a timely fashion. So those are the 7 pieces of the puzzle.
That's awesome. All right. So Ruth, there's a question for you here. This will be our last question. She wants to know, let me find it. It is Jamie. She wants to know that, because you mentioned about lighting and the importance of it quite a bit. Do you offer any kind of workshops or interior design workshops at your studio or online?
No, to be honest, I've never thought about it. I do sometimes give seminars on it.
Okay.
And of course, we do lighting for our customers, but it's an interesting idea, tell Jamie. I'll just have to get my software and hardware a little bit.
Well, now you're your seminar, you can do it digitally.
Yes, exactly.
That's great. Okay, well.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah. Well, to wrap up tonight, I want to.
Are you going to ask me if I do any seminars and workshops?
Yeah, and no one's asked in the chat. All right, Jamie.
We see you.
Well,
no, why don't you? Yeah. So Jim, why don't you tell us how people can connect with you?
Well, two things. I have a YouTube channel called Biz Kaboom Small Business Marketing. So
Okay.
BIZKABOOM. When you type that in the search bar in YouTube, you'll find it. And I encourage everybody to subscribe. We put out about a video a week. We have one that's called 30-second marketer tip of the day. Another one called Good, Bad, and Ugly Ads, which you would get a kick out of. But I also want to make an offer to your participants tonight. I have something called a marketing fitness checkup.
Okay.
That is our diagnostic tool that lets us take a look at your marketing program and help you figure out where the holes are in it. And we promise to make 3 recommendations to help you get more customers who will pay you more money more often. And I'd like to, that's normally a $397 thing that we sell, but I like to be more involved in the pet business. So for the people who are online tonight, I'd like to offer it for free. All they need to do is shoot me an email.
All right. So what's the email? Christina will type it in the chat feed for you. What's the email they should reach out to you at?
It's mail, MAIL, at ascend, ASCEND, marketing.com. Mail at ascendmarketing.com.
They can just mention they were on the Pets Plus webinar with you to take advantage of that. That's awesome, Jim. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Ruth, Ruth, how, if people want to check out your work, where do they go?
Well, they can look at our website, grid3.com. They can, well, and we have Facebook and LinkedIn and so on. They can email me, Yates, YATES, at grid, GRID 3.com, or they can call me. And if, Jamie, you would like to call me about lighting, I'll happily help you. Can I also tell you, I found the most amazing saying from Maya Angelou, which sort of sums up what we've been talking about this evening. I'm just going to read it because I can't remember it.
Yes.
It says, I have learned that people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. A story is an experience. That's important.
That is important. That is important. That's so true. I love that quote. I love that quote. Thank you so much, Ruth. So, well, thank you so much for everyone for joining us tonight. And we will be back again next Wednesday, actually, on October 25th for our Knights of the Round Table discussion of some of the coolest store participants. So some of those stores that Jim and I were both judges for that are going to be joining us next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you are in this feed, we will make sure that you hear about that with the registration link. We will get that posted very soon for you. And if you want to continue to see the next Pets Plus issue, I think it's going to be out very soon, the November and December issue. And again, I'm Candce with Pet Boss Nation, and we have a awesome Facebook group community. I'm going to put the group right here. All petpreneurs are welcome to join. A lot of you I see that are in the chat are in that group, as well as Jim's in the group, and our Pet Boss Nation group, and everybody from the Pets Plus magazine crew is there too. So thank you again for everyone for joining us. We're beyond the pages, and Jim and Ruth, I can't thank you enough. These tips have been awesome.
Been an honor to be with you and everybody else on the line as well.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Have a rockin' night. And go Cubs.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yay, Yankees. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.